Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, in our explainer, we're looking at a story that feels like it was pulled straight out of a dramatic, high stakes photonovela, but I assure you, it is entirely real. We are unpacking the deeply personal, intensely emotional journey of a couple whose beautiful marriage was brought to the absolute brink of destruction. And the villain in this story isn't a scandalous affair and it isn't financial ruin. It's actually the dangerous, often ignored intersection of romantic love and professional boundaries. We're going to see exactly how mixing work with the relationship acted as the ultimate trigger for a devastating conflict. So, what happens when the person you built a home with becomes the exact same person you report to at work? Well, let's find out. I realized the love hadn't died. It was buried. Now think about that for a second. This was the profound realization of a wife who had literally just signed divorce papers. She had walked away from her entire family unit, completely convinced that everything was irreparably shattered. But as you'll see, the love itself wasn't actually the problem. No, it was just suffocating under the weight of something else entirely. To really understand how they got to this breaking point, we have to look back at how they started. Part 1, a very strong connection. Long before the conflict ever started, Nama and Marcelino built this incredibly deep spiritual baseline when they met in Accra back in 2003. The connection was instant. They started talking, getting coffee, going to the movies, and basically never stopped communicating. Soon after, Marcelino was invited to work in a new city, and he surprised Nama with a proposal. She accepted, they moved to Jaragua do Sul and began their lives together. And in a detail that honestly sounds like cinematic fiction but is actual medical fact from their story, Nama was in her fertile window right on their wedding day. She felt immediately that she had become pregnant, which a doctor soon confirmed via ultrasound. It was this fast, beautiful foundation. They were deeply in love, building a family, and just completely connected. Part 2, work invades the marriage. And this brilliantly illustrates the turning point. Fast forward to 2009, Marcelino invites Naoma to work alongside him as a real estate broker on his team for a big launch. On paper, sounds like a great partnership. In reality, this was the exact moment the workplace invaded the marriage. Mixing their professional lives with their romantic relationship became the ultimate trigger for everything that went wrong. Naoma suddenly found herself in this impossible trap. At the office, when she needed support or had a question, Marcelino would just put her on hold to help other clients, basically treating her strictly as a subordinate. But then, when they got home and she tried to ask those lingering work questions, he'd completely shut her down, saying work hours were over and he was off the clock. It was a toxic catch-22. Part 3, the pain of rejection. As you can imagine, this complete lack of boundaries mutated into a profound emotional crisis, leaving Nama experiencing a deep, agonizing sense of abandonment. As she described it, it was a very strong pain. It was a stab. Imagine that emotional whiplash. You go to work and the person who's supposed to be your ultimate protector and partner treats you as a secondary priority. The professional hierarchy completely erased her identity as a cherished wife during the day, and then those arbitrary off-the-clock rules erased her need for support at night. The core psychological trigger here was never, ever about a lack of love. It was entirely about the cold, harsh dynamic of the workplace bleeding right into their home. She felt worse than a normal colleague. She felt actively, continuously rejected by the very person meant to shelter her. The impact of mixing work with the relationship essentially poisoned the well of their intimacy. Part 4, divorce in 7 days. The line between boss and husband disappeared. The line between home and office disappeared. And soon the marriage itself was on the verge of disappearing. Naama had reached her absolute limits. That feeling of daily rejection finally pushed her to issue a final ultimatum. She kept telling Marcelino she wanted him to move out, but he refused, insisting he wasn't going to separate or leave his home. So, driven by that unbearable pain of abandonment, she looked right at him and said, "If you don't leave the house, I will leave." And from the exact moment that ultimatum was laid down, the entire legal and physical dissolution of their marriage took just a matter of days. In exactly 7 days, the divorce was finalized. 7 days. A shocking, jarring collapse that really highlights just how incredibly destructive blurred boundaries can be. When work and marriage mix without extreme care, the resulting explosion can level years of history in almost an instant. Part 5, healing one's own resentment. So the crucial point is what happened next. The papers were signed. During a quiet, devastating period of separation over the next 3 months, Nama began a period of deep introspection to figure out what had actually just happened to her family. She had a massive epiphany regarding resentment, what she called magua. She realized she was carrying this heavy, toxic feeling of deep hurt. Yes, Marcelino had failed her. Yes, he'd made massive errors in how he treated her at work. But the resentment she was holding on to was an internal poison. It was inside her. She realized that you can only truly recognize and connect with another person when you recognize your own imperfections first. She understood that healing the resentment couldn't come from Marcelino. Even though he had caused the hurt, the emotional cleansing of that anger had to begin from within herself. Taking that personal accountability was literally the only way she could stop suffering. Part 6. The love was buried. Once she actively chose to clean out the resentment, the dramatic clouds parted. She looked inward, realized her feelings for him were still rooted in genuine love, and acknowledged that the love hadn't died. The workplace drama had simply buried it. So, as she says, I cleared that resentment, and I picked up my phone and called him. After 3 long months of silence, she took the hardest step. Her message was incredibly simple and direct. I want to talk to you. No accusations, no workplace baggage, just a raw, human request to reconnect. Picture this scene. It's quiet. Marcelino arrives. And he doesn't come with the frantic energy of a stressed real estate broker, and he doesn't bring the defensive energy of an ex-husband. He simply sits beside her on the bench, senses her anxiety about what to say, and gently takes her hand. He looked at her and proved that their original spiritual connection was still alive. He softly told her, stay calm, everything is okay, you don't need to say anything. It was the ultimate gesture of the sheltering and validation she had been begging for during their whole time working together. And then he delivered the sentence that effectively saved their family. He said, when I finish work here, we are going home, okay? Think about how powerful that is. He explicitly separated work from home. He finally acknowledged the boundary. Work stays here, but we belong there, together. And honestly, that was all it took. A silent, deeply emotional reconciliation. Nama went back home with him that very day. By drawing a hard line between their professional lives and their personal sanctuary, they resurrected their relationship. And they remain happily together in that home today. Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this explainer. Their story is a really dramatic warning about the collateral damage of a blurred work-life balance, specifically the explosive impact of mixing work with your romantic relationship. So I leave you with this. Look at your own life. What boundaries do you need to draw today to keep your love, your peace, or your family from being buried by your work? Think about it. Thanks for exploring this story with me today, and I'll catch you next time.